Fantasy Football Tips Podcast with Mills, JP, Quigliano, and Cliff.
Hi, you're listening to the fantasyfootballedge.co.uk podcast. My name is Mills, it's game week 11 and I'm joined by Quigliano and JP. Good evening, gents.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mills.
And we're actually recording this just prior to the Monday Night Football kickoff. So we're slightly ahead of time this week, but we know people want to listen. We know people want to prep their teams early. And, you know, Monday night is as good a night as any other, I suppose. So like I say, we are recording whilst that game's in progress. So if you are listening later on in the week, just bear that in mind. But funny old game week 10, wasn't it, gents?
It was rubbish.
Yeah, it wasn't great, was it? I think particularly people that played wildcards and the free hit, they got hit pretty bad because they put all their eggs in one basket or you know, in maybe a couple of baskets that didn't really pay off. Particularly the Arsenal game, that was disappointing. Did that hit you, Quigliano? Because it definitely hit me.
I'm going to put Ozil in this week and I got an assist. So that was, you know, happy in that respect. And it was a bit of a coin toss between him and Ramsey. So I probably didn't get that right, seeing as Ramsey got himself a goal. Captain Lacazette, that backfired badly. And I also got Monreal, so I lost a clean sheet there for nothing. It's like a weak goal, yeah. That was.
Very much so.
The keeper should have stopped it.
Yeah, and JP, how about yourself?
It was a dreadful week for me, I'm afraid. I used my wild card to no positive effect whatsoever. I made a foolish decision at the last minute to go Richarlison, captain at Watford, expecting them to turn Stoke over at home, and they lost 1-0. I had David Silva for Man City instead of Sané, which was a poor decision. And I even decided at last minute to go Aguero. Obviously, I was going to go Kane, and I've kept some money in the bank to do that. But I did go Aguero, thinking that he would start and score against West Brom, and he didn't score anything. So, other than 2 Man United clean sheets, which was quite nice, very, very bad week for me. I'm
just looking at your wildcard team now, JP, and you've put Monreal, Alderweireld and Bailly in at the back, and Trippier as well. That's a lot of money spent on the defence. And I think
you know what? I'm scoring a lot. Defensively at the moment. The only reason I got any reasonable scores because of my back four this week.
Well, it was a back three, and De Gea got 9.
Back three, sorry. Well,
two of those 3 got 2 points. So I don't know. You do the maths.
Back four. When I say back four, I did include the keeper in that. Actually, for your information.
2 Watford players in midfield. It's a dodgy shout, isn't it? And then Xhaka as well. I suppose he has been chipping in with a few assists and goals.
Cheap. Yeah, 5.5 million. Good shout there.
Okay, yeah, it's not. I'm going to be honest, JP. It's not my favourite wildcard team that I've seen.
It's not.
I think it's awful. I think it's awful. I mean, just thank God you're not offering tips out to people. Otherwise, that really would be hazardous.
Absolutely, certainly would. We've got plenty coming up on the podcast this week. We've got some massive news this week, and I know Quigliano, you in particular are going to be maybe upset about this, but some massive news regarding Sushant. So I'm going to bring that up later. We are going to be talking about the big fixtures, Man City and Arsenal this week, and Chelsea, Man United, and obviously we're going to be looking at everything else. But, gents, it is a tips-based podcast, so should we get straight in with the Gary of the Week?
Gary of the Week is dependent on this person playing a game of football. It's Harry Kane. Screwed me over with that injury because it came late. I'd already made my transfer slightly earlier. I went against my own beliefs to avoid a little price drop. And that late injury caused me to have a -4, which was disappointing. But if he is back, Harry Kane against Crystal Palace has to be the Gary of the week. It's obvious. It is obvious.
It is obvious, yeah. And I suppose we'll learn a lot when they face Real Madrid in midweek, won't we? But yeah, it's going to be a late call, I think, on that one, certainly. So maybe we'll pick up a second sort of Gary of the Week in the side tips. But for now, let's have a look at the Xabi of the Week, so the long shot.
Well, this is if Kane's not available, I think you could put some faith in Tammy Abraham. That is my long shot. They've got home game against Brighton. He bagged a nice assist against Arsenal. I still think the keeper should have saved it, but I watched the highlights of that game. He was getting in the right positions. He did score, but it was just marginally offside. And I think that's a nice little long shot. If you want to pick up a few points on your rivals, not everyone's going to back that. Tammy Abraham, thoughts?
JP?
Yeah, I like it. I think, like you say, it's a good fixture. Brighton playing well at the moment, but likely to concede at least 1 or 2 goals in that game, I would say, away at Swansea. So quite like that one. Not bad.
I think Swansea have certainly got to improve their home form. They've not been great at home so far this season, and Brighton have looked pretty solid. So it'll be interesting to see. I do think Tammy Abraham is a good shout as that third cheap striker, though. So I do like that, particularly if you've got to do something budget-wise to get Kane back in if you have dropped him. So
look at those fixtures. Just those fixtures. They've got Brighton, Burnley, and Bournemouth. That's a nice little trio. Fixtures there where you could probably, you might be looking to get Sanchez in that midfield as well as Kane and Lukaku or something like that. That £5.5 million striker is going to allow you to play around a lot with your dynamics within that team. So there you go.
Nice, I like it. So let's go on to the side tips then, gents.
So JP, I know there was talk last week of you being dominated. Are you okay with me carrying on?
Well, if you start with the side tips, I'll follow with some of my own. How about that?
Acceptable.
Very submissive there, JP.
I'm okay. I've got some in the pipeline. I've got some in the pipeline, so I'd like to think I'll get some in there.
Okay.
It's gone straight over his head.
It certainly has. Innuendo City. Carry on in Quigliano.
Straight in with Jamie Vardy. Jamie Vardy, I think, is a player that is just chipping away, consistent. Again, a cheaper option as your third striker. I think he's a nice little side tip if you're looking to gain some points. I believe, Mills, you've got that fixture lined up, haven't you? Who have Leicester got this week? Stoke away. So that is a good fixture. This next side tip is a bit of a leap of faith, but returning player from injury, Callum Wilson. Good option for Bournemouth. They've got Newcastle, so I think both teams will fancy going out and attacking that game. It's Liverpool's week this week, and I will be rewarded for my patience. And I think you've got to have Salah or Firmino in that team. If you're brave, go Sturridge, but I won't be back in that one, and I've kept the faith in Firmino. And then finally, it's not my greatest set of side tips, but the obvious one that can't be ignored for me is Sané at Man City. I think it's getting to that stage where you've probably just got to have him in your team, because if you're not, you're losing points.
Yeah, well, let's discuss that now, because
for you, JP.
Thanks, Quigliano. I was going to bring this up later on in the podcast, but we'll discuss it now as you've brought it up. Sané, you're absolutely right. He's becoming almost the must-have player in FPL right now, over players like Sergio Aguero and Lukaku and Kane, who we've seen them hold that mantle. But Sané, he just keeps scoring, even when he's not. Even if he's not starting a game, he comes on and scores. A bit like Sterling, I suppose.
The highest point scorer with 71 points. So you can't ignore that. But for me, like at the start of the season, when I was building my team, up until probably the last day, when usually whatever I've spent the whole summer planning goes out the window and I make some last-minute changes, he was in my team. And then I swapped it around, went De Bruyne, thinking that I had to because of his pre-season form. And I was kind of right to begin with because he wasn't getting a game. Whereas now he was scoring points off the bench. Now he's cemented in that position as a starter, and he's lighting it up. I think you can't ignore him. And at 8.7, why would you?
Why would you? A man that did playing their wild card was JP, who went for David Silva. So thoughts on that? Was it purely budget-based, JP, or was there something else?
It was budget-based. I think it's important to receive some accolades because I actually had Gary as... my captain choice would have been Sané, and I did mention that last week. So a bit of a well done there for JP, please.
But you didn't captain him. So.
Sorry, I mean as in I said to captain him, though. Can I have a well done there, please?
That was in the podcast extra time, wasn't it? Yeah, well done,
okay.
JP.
Thank you. Yeah, mention Sané. Listen, Sané's... I would have put him in if I had the money. I made a reluctant decision to save a small amount so that I can get Kane in this week. and in cost of that, I had Silva instead of Sané. So yes, reluctantly, I didn't put him in, but probably should have done.
Okay.
Which now leads me on to my side tips. Can I now move past this?
Of course you
phase?
can. Of course
Thank you very much. Some good side tips there from Quigliano. I want to add a few. Obviously, we mentioned Harry Kane at Spurs, but I think there are now some other really good options there. I think Eriksen's on fire. Like, his passing ability is unreal. He should have got an assist against Man United if anyone was watching the game. He played a class ball through to Dele Alli, should have scored. So I think you could go for a Dele Alli or an Eriksen in the middle of the park. Mention the Liverpool players, so I won't go there. I think I'd also like to mention, with looking at the Everton-Watford game, I know you've criticised me quite heavily for having Watford players, but Everton look dreadful at the moment. They look really, really bad. And I think, again, if you can get one of those maybe cheap midfielders in there, maybe a Dakar or a Richarlison, you're still going to get some points, I'm hoping, this week against Everton. So just to add a few in there to the already very good selection of side tips.
Okay, yeah, absolutely, JP. I do like those, particularly the Watford tip there. I think that's a good one going into this week. I probably wouldn't have both of them, but certainly one of them. Right, gents, we're going to be back right after this short interlude with JP's new feature.
The Fantasy Football Edge Podcast. 90% drivel, 9% ego, and 1% tips.
Okay, gents, so JP, it's your big moment. And I did say new feature. We're actually going to revisit possibly an old feature, which we sort of named Steal or No Deal. But we have got a few suggestions as well. So JP, I'm going to put it out to you. Are you going to go with Steal or No Deal? Or are you going to twist and go with one of the new ones? And you don't know what they are yet. So I think you'll go with the original, I would think.
Put the pressure on. I'm going to stick with it because I'm quite excited about my selection this week. So for this week, Steal or No Deal will remain. And then, Millsy, if you decide that something else that's come along is even better, then I'm willing to change. Okay,
so but just before we jump in, just listen to a couple of these suggestions from the fans. So this one's from Stuart at That Bloke Potter. This came in on email. It says, "Great pod, guys. Awesome to have you back. How about a Man of the Match Week award where the high-scoring FPL manager makes a guest appearance on the pod to explain how lucky they were to beat me again this week? Was going to call it highest ranking manager of last game week or ranker of the week for short. Keep up the good work and don't sell out again. All the best, Stuart." Thoughts on that? I like ranker of the week. I think that's.
I really like ranker of the week. Yeah, I like that. It's that's clever. I'm entertained by that. So
he likes a bit of wordplay. JP does.
I do like a good wordplay. Absolutely. No, I like that, Stuart. Thank you for your contribution there. Really appreciate that. That's something that we can get in as well. I think, Millsy. I mean, look, Millsy, it's what the fans want at the end of the day. You know, we're here for them. So it's their decision. And if that's something that we want to run with, let's do it.
Okay. James Carr has put one in. Pick 3 popular players that did well in the game week and discuss to jump on, monitor, avoid as a 1-week wonder. Okay, that's an interesting one. And FPL Heart has given us one. One team that will surely keep a clean sheet. One player who should be triple captained and prediction reviewed the following week. That's one thing I suppose we don't do. We don't sort of review it again the next week, but I suppose we'd be here all night. So, interesting. So, JP, wow us with Steal or No Deal.
Right. My Steal or No Deal this week is Pascal Gross, which I had to ask you how to pronounce that correctly.
Has he not had his dinner yet?
Probably still got it wrong. But for those of you who don't know, he's a Brighton player. He costs 5.8 million. He's a centre midfielder, very, very cheap. And in his last 3 game weeks, he's had 6 points, 6 points, and 7 points. Earlier on in the season, he also scored an 18-point week. He's one of their best players by far. He's guaranteed to play. He's scoring very highly for how cheap he is. And in my opinion, he's a steal or no deal. I think he's a great steal. Get yourselves in there. Pascal Gross.
I mean, my favourite thing about that is the way you described him as like a rare butterfly that no one knows exists. I think quite a few people have already jumped on that bandwagon. But he's a steal.
By less than 10%, I believe. So I think that's slightly harsh, Millsy. You need to get your facts right before you...
Oh, okay.
So 90% don't think that, and we're here for the 90%, Millsy. So thoughts on that little attack back?
Okay, well, Quigliano, first of all. Have you got Gross in your team?
No, I haven't. I mean, it's definitely an option. 16% of teams own him. 16.6. So I'll round that up to 17.
I apologise.
I mean, it's great.
But still,
I mean, I think
very low.
It's a good option. For me, I'd probably rather have I'm guessing that's going to be your fourth midfielder, is it, JP? Is that what you're suggesting?
It would be your fourth cheapy midfielder, yeah.
And I think my fourth, I'll have spent money elsewhere, so that fourth midfielder for me really needs to be budget. I'm looking at 4.5 million.
Yeah. So
it is slightly overpriced. I'm not looking to back players from outside that top 5, top 6 bracket, which does leave me at a disadvantage when it's game weeks like this, because you've got Man City, Arsenal, Chelsea, Man United. Most of my players are tied up in that game. So I'm going to say no deal, but that doesn't mean that he's not worth investing in. It's just not my cup of tea, not my strategy.
Okay, good. Always good to have that argument there.
The Fantasy Football Edge Podcast, giving you the edge over your rivals.
Okay, gents. So, right, before we move into podcast extra time, we're going to have a few questions in there. We're going to talk about captain picks, and we're also going to talk about Sushant as well. But I want to just go over a couple of questions and emails that have come in. So, first of all, some really nice ones that have come in. Andy Goodland, friend of the show, Golf Pro, has tweeted us at Fantasy Football Edge and said, "Good to have you back, Mills. Look forward to the new pod." Just to kind of contrast that, Andy Cairns came in and said, "Forgot I'd subscribed to your pod feed. Also forgot how bad it was and actually hadn't missed it." Just in case people think that we're filtering these. That was the only bad one. But Luke Arnold, and this is one for you, JP, he's put, "Good to hear the Brummies are back." I'm not sure how you two might feel about that, actually. And then he says, "JP suggestions that aren't on a ban is a good start." And then he asked the question, "Are you still under the thumb?" So that's an interesting question.
Wow.
Oh,
big question.
Can of worms. Can of worms. Yeah.
And a very awkward question there.
So we'll move on.
I feel at this time it's best to move quickly forward past that one.
And then he simply just says...
Can we just ask a quick question, though? Are you currently single, JP?
I am currently single.
Oh,
and then moving
God,
on.
like a dagger in the heart.
Oh, okay. And then he finishes his tweet just by simply saying, "Cliff?" ? So,
what about it? Watch out for them. Watch out for cliffs. You don't want to fall off the edge of them.
Yeah, and watch out for him as well. So, and then...
Might be back.
Before we go into podcast extra time, there's a really interesting question from Darren Anthony Hoy, who simply sent us an email just simply saying this: "What is the best English brewed beer?" I'm not sure if he's got the right podcast, but JP, I'm going to let you answer it anyway.
That would be Sunbeam.
Sunbeam.
Already, Sunbeam.
Okay, Sunbeam for Quigliano, straight in there with a side tip. JP?
Apologies. Yeah, I believe I actually already told you about this. My answer for this is Harvey Blues. It's a really specially crafted beer. It's quite malty and pretty sweet, but it's kind of tempered with an aromatic hoppiness, which I really like about it. So, if you ever get a chance, Blue Harveys.
You definitely sound like you planned that answer.
Surprised to hear about underage drinking as well, JP. I thought you'd wait till you were of legal age to consume that.
Okay. Well, the whistle's gone, gents, so that means it is the end of standard time. We are going to go into podcast extra time very, very shortly. If you're not currently a member at fantasyfootballedge.co.uk, then you can sign up for a 12-month membership. It's going to cost you £9.99, and you're going to get all the extra content on the website, like I say, fantasyfootballedge.co.uk, and you're also going to get all of our podcast extra times. So go and sign yourself up, and you'll find the podcast extra time on there. If not, we will see you in game week 12.
The Fantasy Football Edge Podcast, giving you the edge over your rivals.